This is what you're planning to wear to marry my son." Margaret Harrison's voice dripped with disdain as she held up my wedding dress. I stood in her pristine living room, watching her manicured fingers grip the delicate fabric like it was contaminated. "Emily, darling, this is from a department store. My name is Emily Carter, and at 28, I was about to learn exactly how far my future mother-in-law would go to maintain her precious social standing. The dress she was currently treating like radioactive waste had cost me 3 months of careful saving from my teacher's salary. It wasn't designer, but it was perfect. Simple, elegant, and exactly what I wanted for my wedding to her son, James. "I picked it because I love it," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "And James likes simple designs." Margaret's perfectly penciled eyebrows shot up. "James likes what I tell him to like. And no son of mine will have a bride walking down the aisle in." She checked the label and visibly shuddered. A $100 dress. Before I could react, she reached for the scissors on her craft table. "This is for your own good, dear. The country club ladies would never let me hear the end of it if you showed up in this. Bargain bin tragedy." "Margaret, stop." I lunged forward, but it was too late. The scissors sliced through the delicate fabric, the sound of tearing material echoing in my ears like screams. She didn't just cut it once, she methodically destroyed it, reducing my dream dress to ribbons while maintaining her pleasant society smile. "There," she said, dropping the ruined dress into her expensive wastepaper basket. "Now we can visit Madame Dubois for a proper gown. I've already made an appointment for tomorrow. Her dresses start at $15,000. But that's hardly an issue. We'll put it on James's card." I stared at the shreds of white fabric, my hands trembling. This wasn't the first time Margaret had steamrolled over my choices, but it was the most brutal. Since James and I got engaged 6 months ago, she dismissed my ideas for the wedding, criticized my career, and constantly reminded me that I wasn't quite up to Harrison standards. "You've gone too far," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "That dress was mine. You had no right." She waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, don't be dramatic, Emily. I'm doing you a favor. Besides, it's not like you paid much for it. Now, about tomorrow's appointment." "I'll be there," I said quietly, already forming a plan in my mind. "What time?" Margaret looked pleased, probably thinking she'd won. 11 a.m. sharp, and do try to dress appropriately. Madame Dubois is very particular about her clientele. That evening, as I told James what his mother had done, I expected him to be as outraged as I was. Instead, he ran his hands through his hair nervously. "Mom can be intense about appearances, but she means well. Maybe she's right, we should have a proper society wedding." I felt something crack inside me. "She destroyed my wedding dress, James. The one I showed you last week, the one you said was perfect." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "I know, but maybe it's easier to just go along with what she wants. She's offering to pay for everything." Everything except my self-respect. I stood up from his leather couch, gathering my things. "You know what? I need some time to think." "Emily, don't be like this. You know how important the family's image is. The country club gala is next week, and Mom's already told everyone about our engagement. We need to present a united front." The country club. Of course. Everything in the Harrison world revolved around that prestigious club and its wealthy members. Margaret was hosting their annual charity gala next week, the biggest social event of the season. She'd been talking about nothing else for months. "I'll see you tomorrow," I said, kissing his cheek. For the dress appointment, that night I made some calls. First to my best friend Sophie, who worked as a fashion journalist. Then to my cousin Michael, who happened to be an up-and-coming designer. By midnight, we had a plan that would either fix everything or burn all my bridges with the Harrison family. The next morning, I arrived at Madame Dubois' boutique exactly at 11 a.m., dressed in my most professional outfit. Margaret was already there, sipping champagne and looking through racks of extravagant gowns that cost more than my yearly salary. "Emily, darling, you're here." Madame Dubois greeted me with air kisses. "Your mother-in-law has told me all about your unfortunate previous choice. Don't worry, we'll find you something worthy of the Harrison name." For the next 2 hours, I tried on dress after dress, each more elaborate and expensive than the last. Margaret critiqued every one, finding flaws in even the most luxurious designs. Finally, she settled on a monstrosity that looked like a meringue had exploded on a silk factory. "This is the one," she declared. "It's perfect. We'll take it." I smiled sweetly. Actually, I have something else in mind. Margaret's face froze. What do you mean? I said, gathering my things, that I won't be needing a dress from here. But thank you for your time, Madame Dubois. As we left the boutique, Margaret gripped my arm. What do you think you're doing? We had an agreement. No, Margaret, you had a plan. I have one of my own. I gently removed her hand. I'll see you at the country club gala next week. Don't worry, I'll dress appropriately. Her face paled slightly. Emily, don't do anything foolish. The Harrison name. We'll be just fine, I assured her. After all, image is everything, right? As I walked away, I could feel her stare burning into my back. She had no idea what was coming, but she was right about one thing. The country club ladies would definitely be talking about this for a long time to come. The week leading up to the country club gala was a whirlwind of secret preparations. My cousin Michael worked tirelessly in his studio, turning my vision into reality, while Sophie helped coordinate the final details of our plan. James called repeatedly, clearly worried about what his mother had told him, but I assured him everything was fine. Just trust me, I said during one of his anxious calls. I'm handling the dress situation. Mom's really worried, he replied. She says you're planning something to embarrass the family at the gala. I smiled to myself. Margaret's always worried about something, but tell her I'll be there, looking exactly as a future Harrison should. The night of the gala arrived, crisp and clear. The country club's grand ballroom was decorated elegantly, with crystal chandeliers casting a warm glow over the gathered elite of our city. Margaret had outdone herself with the planning. Ice sculptures, champagne fountains, and a string quartet playing softly in the corner. I arrived deliberately late, knowing Margaret would be in full hostess mode, making her rounds among the guests. James was waiting anxiously by the entrance, tugging at his bow tie. Emily, thank God you're here. Mom's been. His words trailed off as he saw what I was wearing. The dress was stunning. A perfect recreation of my original wedding dress, but with a twist. Michael had used the same simple, elegant design but crafted it from the finest silk and hand-sewn lace. The department store dress Margaret had destroyed had been transformed into a couture masterpiece, maintaining its understated beauty while elevating every detail. Is that, James started. The same design? Yes, I smoothed the silk skirt. Just upgraded a bit. Before James could respond, I heard Margaret's sharp intake of breath from across the room. She made her way toward us, her face cycling through various shades of red. What are you wearing? She hissed, grabbing my arm. That looks just like that horrible cheap dress. Oh, you noticed. I said brightly, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Yes, after you destroyed my original dress, I had this one made. Do you like it? It's a Michael Chen original. The mention of Michael's name caused several heads to turn. He'd recently dressed several celebrities for major events, and his designs were the talk of the fashion world. Margaret's grip on my arm tightened. Michael Chen, you're lying. Actually, she's not, came a voice from behind us. Sophie stood there, press badge visible, accompanied by a photographer from her fashion magazine. Michael Chen personally designed this dress after hearing how his cousin's future mother-in-law destroyed her original wedding dress. Such a touching story of family coming together, don't you think? The color drained from Margaret's face as she realized we had an audience. Several of her country club friends had gathered around, watching the scene unfold with barely concealed interest. Cousin, one of them asked. Emily, you're Michael Chen's cousin. I nodded modestly, on my mother's side. He was kind enough to help when he heard what happened to my first dress. He said no bride should have her dream dress destroyed, regardless of its price tag. The whispers started immediately. I could see Margaret's carefully constructed social hierarchy crumbling around her. Her friends were looking at her differently now, some with obvious disapproval. I had no idea, one woman said, eyeing Margaret coldly. Destroying a bride's dress, that's simply not done. And such a beautiful design too, another added. Simple, elegant, very Grace Kelly, much more sophisticated than those overdone ball gowns everyone's wearing these days. Margaret attempted to salvage the situation. I was only trying to help. The original dress was inappropriate for our social circle. Inappropriate? Sophie jumped in, her reporter's instincts kicking in. So you're saying Michael Chen's designs are inappropriate? I'm sure our readers would be fascinated to hear your thoughts on one of fashion's rising stars. James finally found his voice. Mom, what were you thinking? How could you destroy Emily's dress? The look of betrayal on Margaret's face when her own son sided against her was almost enough to make me feel sorry for her. Almost. James, darling, I was only trying to maintain our family's standards, she pleaded. By bullying my fiancé, by destroying something she loved. He shook his head. The only person damaging our family's standards is you, Mom. The string quartet had stopped playing, and the entire ballroom seemed to be watching our drama unfold. Margaret stood frozen, her perfect society smile cracking at the edges as she realized her position as queen bee of the country club was seriously threatened. Sophie's photographer snapped a few photos, capturing Margaret's dismay perfectly. This will make a wonderful article, Sophie said cheerfully. The power of family, love, and fashion triumphing over social prejudice. Unless, of course, you prefer we didn't run the story. Margaret's charity gala, usually the highlight of the country club's social calendar, ended early that night. One by one, guests made polite excuses and departed, many stopping to compliment my dress and ask for Michael's contact information. By midnight, the grand ballroom was nearly empty, the champagne fountains still flowing but with no one left to enjoy them. I found Margaret sitting alone at her carefully planned head table, staring at her untouched plate. You've ruined everything, she said quietly as I approached. Years of building our family's reputation, all destroyed in one night. No, Margaret, I replied, taking the seat next to her. You did that yourself when you decided your social status was more important than your son's happiness. James joined us, loosening his bow tie. Mom, we need to talk about this. About everything. For the first time since I'd known her, Margaret Harrison looked her age. The carefully maintained facade had cracked, revealing the insecure woman beneath all the designer labels and social climbing. I just wanted everything to be perfect, she whispered. The right dress, the right wedding, the right impression. Is that so terrible? The problem, James said firmly, is that you never asked what we wanted. What made Emily and me happy didn't matter as long as it fit your image of perfection. The next morning, the story broke in Sophie's magazine. The headline read, Love, Fashion, and Family, How a Destroyed Wedding Dress Led to a Designer Collaboration. The article was surprisingly kind to Margaret, focusing more on Michael's beautiful recreation of my dress and the theme of staying true to oneself despite social pressures. Still, the damage to Margaret's social standing was done. Her country club friends, always eager for fresh gossip, spread the story far and wide. The woman who destroyed her future daughter-in-law's wedding dress became a cautionary tale about taking social climbing too far. A week later, Margaret called and asked to meet for coffee, not at her usual country club cafe, but at a small bistro near my school. She arrived without her usual armor of designer clothes and perfect makeup, looking almost normal in jeans and a simple sweater. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she said, stirring her coffee absently. About the dress, about the wedding, about everything. I was wrong, Emily, not just about the dress, but about who you are and what you bring to our family. I waited, letting her continue. James is happier with you than I've ever seen him. You challenge him, support him, love him for who he is, not his last name. I was so focused on maintaining our social position that I forgot what really matters. And what's that? I asked. Family, she said simply. Real family, not the artificial connections I've spent years cultivating at that club. We spent the next hour really talking for the first time. She told me about her own humble beginnings, how she'd married into the Harrison family and spent decades trying to prove she belonged. How her own mother-in-law had treated her with the same condescension she'd shown me. I became exactly what I hated, she admitted. I'm sorry, Emily, for everything. The wedding planning started fresh after that. Margaret still offered to help, but this time she listened more than she spoke. We found a new dress together, not the original department store one, but not a $15,000 designer gown either. Something in between, something that felt right. The ceremony was held in the garden of our first choice venue, not the country club Margaret had initially insisted on. Michael designed dresses for my bridesmaids as his wedding gift, and Sophie wrote a beautiful follow-up article about family reconciliation and second chances. Margaret's social circle eventually recovered, though she never quite regained her former queen bee status. Surprisingly, she seemed happier for it. She started volunteering at my school's art program, discovering she had a talent for helping children express themselves creatively. The society pages were replaced by finger paintings on her refrigerator, and her designer handbags often carried extra art supplies. At our wedding reception, Margaret stood to give her speech. "A few months ago, I thought I knew exactly what made a perfect family," she said, her voice emotional. "I was wrong. Perfect families aren't built on designer labels or social status. They're built on love, acceptance, and sometimes the courage to stand up for what's right." Emily taught me that, and I couldn't be prouder to welcome her to ours. As I watched her raise her glass, I realized that sometimes the happiest endings come from the most unexpected beginnings. A destroyed wedding dress had led not just to a viral story or a designer collaboration, but to something far more valuable, a real family, flaws and all,